And here we come to section number 5. And in number 5, just to recap what's gone on so far, chords first, then arpeggios, and then a note at the same time as the bass note, making us imply a little bit of a melody in the... And so we're leading the top note of the chord is now kind of becoming a melody. In the next one, we actually broke into a melody note and a non-melody note. These type of things. Whatever the notes were. And now what we're doing is having even more melody notes. We're just constantly adding a little bit more and more melody. And so now this is becoming mostly melody. So then the question is, if it's going to be mostly melody, what notes are not the melody? And so I think that's really important to know, because we don't want to bang those out. We want to pull them back into the background. So let's just take a look. And this, one of the ways that we can do this is just look at what doesn't fit in with the other one. So here we're going by step, and then we have this big jump down here, jump back up, jump back down, jump back up. So something in here is not melody, right? This is something in here is now just arpeggio work. So for some reason I want the downbeat right here to be a melody note, but there's really nothing that says that it has to be. But for some reason it just in my ear, it just sounds like that. So sorry. So it just sounds like that. So let's just make it one arbitrarily. You could also just think, and then let this become the next melody note. So that you have these 3 notes, then all 3 of these are not melody notes and do it. But let's just make it that, because, well, for one thing, we have G, A, B, C, D going up here. And so we could think of it as part of that. And so that's just a way, these are just decisions we make, right? Because it's not actually written in and implied, and you'll see this a lot in music from this period and a lot in music in general, you have to decide what's melody and what's not. And ideally you have some good reason for that you're not just arbitrarily doing it because, well, that finger typically plays louder, so I just make it the note. This, we're going to call that part of the melody. Keep this out of the background, or in the background. And then this is all line here. Oh, but look. This one is not melody. So those are the 3 notes in this line that are not melody. Looking at the next line, then we can come along. So, ba-da-da. This one, this note right here, it could go either way because we are going up to the A right here and then our line. So I think of this as like almost like a counter melody. This whole thing right here, that's almost like a different voice. And stuff. What are my notes? Just because it's kind of in a different register than that we've been having, is that you could kind of think of it as something else. But it could also just all connect. At any rate, this is a throwback to our last section, right? It's the same thing as in our last section where we have that pedal note, and so we have melody on the 1st and 3rd beats and the accompaniment on the 2nd and 4th beats. So then definitely those are quiet. The repeated G right here is quiet. just play with that and see what you think. The main thing is that it has to make sense to you. Is this part of the same melody? If you were singing that line, would it be part of the same line, or is it like a different voice that comes in and interjects for just a second? Make that decision for yourself with these 4 notes, and then phrase it so that it could be louder than the other. You could be playing this along here, through here, and then you play that, and then you come back for this part, and this being a much more like a louder line down here, something different. Or it could all just be one big thing that just moves all the way through. There is one more thing to talk about on this, and that is this this connection of these bars right down through here. Right down through here. And so how are we going to do this? If we're going to connect this F to this G right here, if we're going to connect the F to the G, then that means that the 1 finger has to hold this entire time, right? And then get taken over by the 3. That's just like physics, right? If it's going to hold, we have to hold it. Well, we also have this C right here and this C right here. And because this C right here is holding over an open string, then we can't let this be a bar, right? So if we bar this first one, like this, right, to get there, well, then we're going to have to hop it to get over here, because we have to let it go for this G right here. So we have some conflicting interests that we have to contend with. So perhaps the best way would be to think about this note right here being the cover note. Let's try that. No, that's the 3. Couple of things. You could play this as a 4 finger, and that would work to hold that through so that can cover your shift. It's something ringing out, so that you could use the 4 finger there, or you could just practice this lightning fast hop right here so that you can then get to one of the things that I would definitely do for this is to bring out this note right here. Accent that C, da, da, whichever one you do. And that's going to make it easier. Well, one, it's going to bring out the fact that it's an anticipation of the melody note. And so that's one of the things that it'll do. The other thing that it will do is give you a little bit of extra time. Because that louder note, the note will keep ringing in our ears, in our mental memory. Even if you make it slightly bigger, like even if you make a big gap, loud, then just because it's loud and solid, we'll think that we're continuing to hear it, and so it'll cover your shift. Whereas if you play it quietly, it sounds much more like a gap. It's interesting that works, but it does. Just play it louder, and then that gap doesn't seem so noticeable. So that's the pesky bar line that we have to try to avoid right there. Of course, like I said, bring these down. And then this is your melody with the 1 and 3. So, big section, that one. In the next, things get really hairy. See you over there.